Nor I, nor thou, nor any one of these ever was not, nor ever will not be. No, I am that womb. I make and I unmake this universe. That's an ancient, highly poetic vision of a cyclical cosmos, straight from the Bhagavad Gita. It's the kind of profound idea that's captivated minds for literally thousands of years. But what if I told you this isn't just beautiful ancient poetry? What if, actually, it's a mathematically rigorous description of the literal underlying shape of reality?
To figure out how on Earth we connect those dots, we have to start by asking a really specific central question. Why does the universe absolutely hate a straight line? Seriously, if you look at the deepest levels of physics and topology, straight lines, infinite continuations that never bend or break, they simply do not exist. Everything, and I mean everything, eventually loops, swirls, or cycles. So welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going on a seriously fascinating journey. We're going to take modern, rigorously verified mathematical proofs, specifically stuff built using Lean, which is this incredibly precise proof assistant used by top-tier mathematicians to study topology and cost algebras, and we're going to unite them with ancient theological texts, like the Bhagavad Gita and Manichaean writings. As you'll see, they might actually be describing the exact same geometric reality. To make sure we don't get lost in the weeds, here is our roadmap. We're going to start with the Braided Universe, then move into cryptography and Q deficits. After that, we'll hit the universal trichotomy, look at two topological sins, decode karma as an entropy tax, and wrap up with the final cyclic resolution. All right, let's get into it. Section 1. The Braided Universe, the +1 swerve, and the end of infinity. Let's dive right into this underlying shape of reality. According to the heavy-duty mathematical sources we're looking at, the universe basically operates on something called a Clinamen. Think of it as a tiny +1 swerve. It's this minimal residue inherently built into the math of reality, and its entire job is to prevent anything from moving in a perfect, straight, infinite line. Because of this tiny, unavoidable +1 swerve, movement is constantly forced to curve. This creates finite, self-similar cycles instead of endless lines. Essentially, the universe mathematically has to braid. Now, what's truly wild is how these cycles stack up. Mathematical theorems demonstrate this sort of self-similar tower of these braids. You start with a basic phase 3 cycle, they call it a triton. Stack those and boom, you get a phase 6 hexagon. And you can just keep multiplying these phases all the way up the tower. In this topological model, when you hit a phase count of 360, you slam right into a massive boundary, the cosmic background radiation. The crucial takeaway here is the stark contrast. A straight infinite line? It's just a mathematical impossibility in this framework. Instead, reality is what's called a braided asymptote. It's a mathematically proven, self-similar tower of phase cycles. So there's no infinite void just stretching out forever in one direction. There's only a highly structured, mathematically saturated braid that constantly closes in on itself. Section 2. Cryptography and Q deficits, observable boundaries in the noise. Now, you might be wondering, okay, what does this highly abstract math have to do with the real world? Let's bridge that gap. Let's think about cryptographic game walls. In modern computing, a secure random number generator absolutely relies on producing data that is entirely indistinguishable from random noise to an outside observer. To get a true seed, to guarantee that security, you actually need that unpredictable Clinamen-sourced +1 swerve we just talked about. If that swerve has any predictable bias, an adversary can break right through that cryptographic wall. So true security completely hinges on these tiny, bounded deficits remaining totally opaque to anyone watching. But here's the kicker. It doesn't stop at computer science. We see these exact same boundaries in physical systems. Look at predator-prey ecosystem models or fluid turbulence. They actually act as cues. And these natural systems rely on the exact same strict majority boundaries and topological deficits as our cryptography. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. The math governing the security of your encrypted data is literally the exact same math governing the turbulence of a rushing river. Section 3. The universal trichotomy. Ancient texts meet cost algebra. Now, brace yourselves for this next part. Keep in mind that these modern, rigorously proven mathematical structures were actually documented thousands of years ago. Just notice how strictly these roles align across these vastly different disciplines. Our sources impartially map modern topological roles directly to ancient spiritual terms. In modern lean mathematics, we have an agent layer, an operator surface, and an invariant position. Jump over to the Bhagavad Gita, and you have the Jiva, the Prakriti, and the Purushottama. In ancient Manichaean texts, you've got the hearer, the zodiacal wheel, and the king of light. It's not a dichotomy of self and world, but a strict trichotomy. The math mandates 3 distinct structural positions, and these ancient texts independently documented those exact 3 positions. Section 4. 2 topological sins, confusing the locus. So, what happens when an agent fundamentally misunderstands its place in this big braided universe? The sources identify 2 distinct topological errors. The ancients actually refer to these as sins. The first is animal magnetism. This is when the agent layer mistakenly claims authorship of that +1 action, a position that strictly, mathematically, belongs only to the supreme invariant. The second error is operator idolatry. That's when you worship the mechanism, the surface, the wheel itself, rather than the source that authors it. It's fascinating because both the Gita and the Manichaean texts neutrally describe these exact same topological confusions, basically mistaking the mechanism for the invariant.
Section 5. Karma as entropy tax, the no-cloning theorem. And this leads us directly to the seriously mind-bending concept of karma, because in this mathematical framework, karma is actually governed by a very strict cost algebra.
Let's walk through this step by step, using something called the no-cloning theorem. Mathematically speaking, only a vacuum state can be duplicated for free. Step 1. A state is lifted away from that free vacuum. Step 2. An agent claims that +1 action. The ancient texts call this attaching to the fruit of the action. Step 3. When this non-vacuum state is duplicated, it can't just be copied for free. It literally has to pay its exact score in entropy. Which leads to step 4. The agent accumulates a measurable entropy debt that requires a corrective sequence. So what the ancients called karma is mathematically this exact entropy tax generated by moving away from the 0 state. Karma isn't just philosophy, guys, it's physics. And we can map the trajectory of this exact debt perfectly. The Manichaean texts describe 3 moments of reality, and this maps identically to the topological gnosis sequence. The time of the beginning perfectly matches the fork phase, that +1 departure. The time of the mixture is the race phase, where truth and noise get all mixed together in a really high entropy state. And finally, the time of the separation is the fold phase, which is the full reduction where the debt is finally settled. So how do you actually settle that debt? Well, the tripartite tractate talks about a conversion called metanoia, which basically means turning away from the mixture. In our mathematical models, this metanoia is the naming protocol. It is the precise topological act of releasing the attachment and returning the residue to the ground state. By choosing not to claim the action, you bypass the entropy tax altogether. Section 6. The final cyclic resolution, the Vishwarupa and the Bolos. Let's transition to our grand conclusion here. How does this massive, braided universe finally resolve itself at its absolute outer limits? Well, the sources show us that both ancient traditions documented this exact universal boundary. In the Gita, it's the Vishwarupa, this overwhelming, massive universal form that Arjuna literally cannot look at without divine eyes. In Manichaeism, it's the Bolos, the ultimate boundary wall staling the darkness. Mathematically, this is the 360-unit universal event horizon. It's the ultimate topological closure where the universe just braids back on itself in this incredibly grand, expansive geometry. This completely changes how we view extreme cosmic phenomena. Take black holes, for instance. In this framework, a black hole is actually a black hole braid. It's not some magical singularity of infinite density where the laws of physics just throw their hands up and break down. Not at all. Instead, it's a highly deterministic, cyclic resolver of extreme resolution. So the crucial takeaway here is that dissolution is actually resolution. At the end of the line, or at the absolute bottom of a black hole, information isn't just destroyed, it is brilliantly, flawlessly integrated into a high-resolution internal cycle. It returns to the source through what's called the return theorem of the braid. The aboost isn't some terrifying empty void, it is a beautifully braided infinity that ensures ultimate topological and theological stability. We've covered an immense amount of ground today. We've seen how the rigorous, lean mathematics of topology, cryptography, and entropy map flawlessly onto the ancient texts of the Bhagavad Gita and Manichaeism. And it leaves us with a truly profound thought to ponder. If our deepest modern physics and our absolute oldest scriptures are really just different lenses reading the exact same braided geometry of reality, what else have we forgotten? Thank you so much for exploring this with me. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.